Devin, my
What's
brother, how are you, man?
good? How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Sorry about all the mix up. I think how long you been waiting for?
Not long.
Okay, good. Just because I'm like looking, I'm like, okay, he says he's trying to join, and then now I'm like, okay, what the hell? And then I just looked over, I had the side screen closed up. I'm like, oh, duh. I'm like a veteran interview here. I should have known that. So that's okay, man. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Just been out and about today, trying to stay busy.
And how's training and everything?
Right now I'm dealing with a little medical issue. I'm gonna have to go in for surgery this week on some intestine issues. So I
Oof.
got to do much training this week, but I'm still staying in shape a little bit.
Oh, that's good. So that being said, did you call your fight off, or what's gonna happen there?
Yeah, we ended up having to push back the fight. I'm hoping that I still get a fight in May now, but yeah, the one in March we had to push back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, are you still gonna get the same opponent, or how's that gonna work out?
I'm not sure honestly. I know they found another opponent for my who I was supposed to fight, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll just have to wait to see if it works out. You never know what happens with this fight. But so no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, hoping so, but never know.
Yeah, okay. Okay. So I just had Jason on earlier, and he was kind of talking a little bit about Glory and the work ethic that you guys have there. So yeah, I mean, like what's actually I'll get back to that because I do want to kind of touch upon your whole story here. So let's kind of begin with the beginning. Like, how did you get into MMA?
So I actually started wrestling as conditioning for football because I
Oh
was a
yeah.
player, and joined the wrestling team in sixth grade. Ended up being kind of decent at it. Liked it a
Mm-hmm.
lot, and so through wrestling, I was with a buddy. Went over to his house and we watched the MMA fights. Matt Hughes was fighting, and ever since I saw Matt Hughes fight, I was just obsessed with it. So started jujitsu in between wrestling seasons or times I was wrestling. I would go compete in jujitsu, train jujitsu, and then
Mm-hmm.
when I was 18, after I graduated high school, I went to college and I started fighting right when I turned 18.
Nice,
It's
man. So, did you find like the wrestling and the BJJ kind of help each other in a way? I mean, because you're basically going to the ground in most.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wrestling I think is the strongest base for MMA. I think
Mm-hmm. I
if
agree.
if anyone asks me like, oh, what can I do as a young athlete to have a future in MMA, I'd say join wrestling. Because wrestling is going to teach you the work ethic. It's going to teach you like certain skills that you need, that meanness, that like tenacity, that never quit, that hard work, teach you how to cut weight. It just it gives you that mindset plus all the benefits it has in the fight. But it gives you just as much outside of the fight as it does in the fight. It works mentally, physically, everything. Wrestling's just the best thing you can have for it. And then, I mean, you just got to know jujitsu. Everybody now, everybody now trains jujitsu. So if you don't have
Mm-hmm.
a well-rounded jujitsu game, then you'll probably be getting subbed.
Well, and it's interesting that you bring that up because I think BJJ is such a like jujitsu is such a popular sport now, like itself. And if you watch a lot of like a lot of actors and stuff that have to do like a lot of action movies and stuff, one of the biggest things that they have these actors do is they go over to you know um a gym wherever they're shooting, and they'll go train for like 3 or 4 months, and they'll literally get legit belts. And it's interesting to kind of see even just actors what they can do. And I know one of the actors, I think Keanu Reeves, yeah, he got into jiu-jitsu, and I don't know if he's still doing it, but yeah, I mean, you can just see how he applies that in all of his like all those movies that he's been in.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting super popular with like, more more famous and high level people, just because it's a great release. It teaches you
Hmm.
self defense. It's a great way to stay in shape. And it's just like, it's an interesting thing. A lot of people find it interesting. I think like Demi Lovato maybe is big into it now.
Yeah.
Tim Allen, I think, is big into it. So there's quite a few big names that are real big into it now too. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But do you find like that can be kind of dangerous? Because, nowadays, 15, 20 years ago, if you knew your shit, if you knew you had your BJJ wrestling, your boxing, you had the whole package, and you got in a street fight, the chances of that guy, your opponent, he's probably just gonna swing for the fences, and you know how to handle that situation. But whereas now, like because MMA is so mainstreamed and people it's becoming such a popular sport, do you find it's more dangerous getting into those brawls now?
I mean, definitely street fighting's always gonna be
No, it's never good.
yeah, it's always gonna be a pretty dangerous thing. But honestly, what I've found is most people who actually train like jujitsu and train MMA and take the time to actually be a part of the sport, they're pretty good at like avoiding all kind of situations like that. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, almost every fighter I've ever known doesn't really get in trouble like outside of it, because we just know how to like avoid the situations altogether. Now, of course, there's going to be some people who do things for the wrong reason, and those are the people who are going out trying to pick fights every weekend. But
Yeah.
if they run into a real fighter, they'll it changes up real quick.
Yeah, you get one of those guys that gets his white belt and thinks he's the shit, and then tries
Mm,
to tries to fight someone at the bar. It doesn't usually work too well. You get booed in the face once you take it to the ground. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, but let's kind of you made your amateur debut in 2012. So, at what moment did you know you were ready to take that leap into the MMA stage?
So yeah, I graduated in May of 2012, and I had my
Hmm.
first fight scheduled for October of 2012.
Hmm.
Uh, the guy actually back.
Hey man, you're muted, by the way. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay,
okay. You're gonna have to like do the last 10, 15 seconds.
sounds good. Sounds good. So yeah, my first fight. I graduated high school in May of 2012. First
Hmm.
fight be October of 2012. The guy actually he backed out on the walk out to the fight. Like, he showed up, weighed in, showed up to the venue, and then we couldn't find him for the fight. I walked out, he never came out. So
Wow.
that was my first experience with it. And then it was kind of like, as soon as I got into the gym, I knew, like, as soon as I actually started training it all together, I knew I was ready for it, and that's what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
Uh, I picked it up real quick. I'm a real visual learner, so if someone can show something and I can pick it up real well. So I learned real fast, and I was able to get in there and get fights in right away, pretty much.
Hmm. No, Glory MMA. Obviously, what was like the feeling of joining that gym in the atmosphere?
So my first week was like the most miserable thing ever.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
moved up there, I was pretty out of shape. Um, I go in there, and they're testing me. They're seeing what kind of level I'm at. So they're pushing me, and they're giving me all the best guys, and I'm having to go through it. And
Hmm.
I got my butt kicked a lot. I wasn't used to that, but that's when I knew that's where I needed to be. That was the right place. And then
Hmm.
just the longer I got there, the more like you learn there's a culture there. Like, when we're there, it's
Absolutely.
yeah, you show up on time, you don't show up late, you show up ready to work, you show up in a good attitude. If you don't have a good attitude, there's a problem. You have to show up with everything hitting on all cylinders. I mean, there's always going to be days where you're just not feeling it, but you better be feeling it when you get there.
Yeah. Well, and I did want to kind of talk about the whole idea about the atmosphere there. So, what I was saying at the beginning of this interview about like Jason and I, we were talking about how the whole idea about the gym that it's no secret that you have a hardworking team, and I think that kind of translates into like what you're mentioning about how you're always coming in, you're coming out on time. Like when you're you better be feeling it if you want to show up, right? So like, is that how you would describe it as well?
Yeah, the atmosphere in there, it's just like it's a whole different thing. Like not only do we like the atmosphere is it demands hard work. You have to
Mm-hmm.
work hard. Like if you're not working hard, you're not gonna cut it. Like the people who are on the Glory fight team they earned it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They come in, they take their beatings, they work hard every day. They're following the crazy schedule we got. So everybody there has earned it. So that's like hard to even talk about because just everybody there is a part of it. But the coolest thing about our atmosphere is not only are we working hard, we're beating people up, we're doing everything you got to do, but like we support one another like no
Mm-hmm.
other. Like for example, Derek Minner just fought in the UFC. He
Yeah.
joined a few months ago, like 6 months ago, I think, roughly around that. Everybody was watching. Everybody, like when he won, we all won. We were all
Yeah.
so excited for him, and like that's how it is with everybody. Like the a lot of them guys are my family, so like I consider them, you know, like my family. Like one of my best friends, Cameron Cash, fought last weekend, and we drove up to St. Louis, me and Grant, and we cornered him, and like it's just like we're always supporting one another, and that's one of the things that makes our team so good is not only do we do the rest of the stuff, but we actually have like a connection as a team.
100%, man. And that kind of draws me into the next point. You know, Giving it a little bit of thought, do you think having kind of a smaller knit group together is better than having like a kind of like a brand kind of gym, kind of like almost like ATT? Like they're very like, don't get me wrong, they're a very good gym, obviously, like no doubt. I mean, they got champions coming out of there, great fighters. But do you think it's better to have a closer knit group than having a whole big organization like ATT?
Um, honestly, I can't speak much on it because I haven't been to, Glory's a big gym to me. You know what I mean? I've
Right,
visited
right.
some, but I mean, those gyms, they're obviously doing something right, but our gym is like growing faster than anybody. So
Hmm.
whatever we're doing, I think we're doing it right. So if that's the small knit group, if that's the hard working, if that's having certain personalities that fit the team, like because there's good guys who might not fit our team well because they don't have the right personality. You know what I mean? So it's not just like we're not just looking for big names to come be a part of our gym. Like James, James is like he's accepting the people who fit the mold of the Glory MMA. So like we're all the same kind of group of people working together for the same goal.
Hmm. Yeah, and one point I brought up earlier with Jason was the fact that, like, I think there's that idea where you have veterans and you have your up and comers and guys that are just starting, or guys or girls that are just starting. I think the whole idea is that you have veterans that can learn something from someone that's just starting out because they're in a whole different era of MMA or whatever they're training, whereas they have them being taught by the veterans, right?
Yeah, like something
Hmm.
James always says that I really like is like you can pick something up from everybody. So like
Yes.
you don't have to want to fight like a fighter, but maybe that guy throws his straight right a certain way. You can pick that up and add that to your game and just piece parts from everybody. Like there'll be amateurs who change levels and throw a punch a certain way, that, might help one of our UFC guys in his fight just because he hasn't seen something like that. So there's always something you can pick up from one of your teammates. And I
Yeah,
really,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's something that I had to learn when when I was training in Shotokan was the fact that like just because I at the time I got this lesson from my sensei when I got my brown with white stripe was the fact that like I thought, oh, I'm gonna get my black belt on the shit. You know, I was 15, 16 years old. And one thing he taught me was like, yeah, you can think that all you want, Luke, but at the end of the day, you're gonna learn something from some of these white belts that you haven't seen.
mm-hmm.
And it's I think it's a learning curve for sure. And that's what kind of makes you stronger is that willingness to continue to learn. And that's something that I had to learn as well as when I got my black. I didn't just stop learning. That was just the whole idea is you're open to learn now. You're not, you're not the master.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta be able to lose your ego every day.
Absolutely. Now let's just kind of move on here. I know that you were supposed to have your fight. Obviously, things aren't working out the way you wanted to. But you got some teammates that have upcoming fights. You got like Jason Witt that has a fight coming up. You got Megan Anderson that's got a huge fight coming up. Is this kind of like a thing with gyms? I find that a lot of teammates all have fights around the same time. Is that a thing or is that just coincidence?
No, it's honestly, man, it seems like we have fights every weekend, honestly.
Right,
So
right.
it's like back to back to back, and it's local shows and the UFC. Like
hmm
we just had Minner this weekend. We have Kroom. Then we have
Yeah.
then we have Megan and Tim. Then we have Witt. Then we have Grant, and that's all in the UFC just coming up here in the next month. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you just had Julian fight what
Yeah,
last week or the week before? Yeah, it's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Julian fought, then Minner fought the next week, and it's just yeah,
Yeah.
it's we got someone in the UFC every week.
Oh, I know it's nuts. Well, and the reason why I asked is because like I've done stuff. I've done some work with some of the guys at Team Elevation, and yeah, like they have like well, they sometimes have two guys fighting each other in the same camp, which is kind of weird. And then they would have like four or five guys all fight on the same card. It's insane.
Yeah, yeah. Usually when you have one guy going out, you can get some of your other teammates on the card, and it just snowballs from there.
hmm Does that ever is that ever kind of a nightmare for your coaches to like pick who you're gonna be able to corner and who you're not?
Um, I mean, I'm sure they have their own things, but I mean, usually it's pretty well done. Like I know Grant is always going to be in my corner.
hmm
James a lot of times is going to be corner in the UFC. So the UFC guys, they need our head coach first. But when James is available, he's going to come to every fight he can because he loves coaching. So like when James is available, he's going to be in my corner for sure. And then I know if when James isn't available, I mean Grant's in my corner either way. But Grant's always going to have my back. So I always have a coach who's going to have my back, and that's with everyone else too. They always know one of our coaches is going to be there supporting them and cornering them.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now I do want to kind of move on and talk about Megan Anderson for a second. So obviously she's got a huge fight. I mean, against
Mm-hmm.
arguably probably the female goat of MMA. Nothing to take away from Megan, but so I guess like how do you if you had to keep this unbiased, like how do you see this fight playing out with her in a fighter like Nunes?
Uh, I think Megan's improving a bunch. I mean, I get a roll with Megan a lot, and her ground game's just shooting through the roof. And I think
hmm
she's kind of the she's kind of the person who can beat Nunez, someone who can stay on the outside and not, you know, let play into that game of Nunez. I think Nunez is going to get hit by her and try to take her down pretty quickly. And if Megan can stuff the takedown, I think it's going to be a long night for Nunez. So Yeah, I think if Megan can keep her range, I really think Megan will get the W.
Yeah, and you know what, and I gave this fight a thought a couple of weeks ago. So I've been busy moving and doing all that, and I sat down. I'm like, you know what, and I was getting my interviews ready, and I had a couple of matchups that I was thinking about, and I thought about this one for a bit, and I thought about, I'm like, you know what, like what's like obviously you never want to take anything from away from Megan because she has every chance like anybody else. But I thought, I'm like, okay, so you got this girl like Nunes. I mean, you watch her fight every single girl and how she just destroys every single person. You just look at her like, how do you beat her? It's like a puzzle. And I thought about it, I'm like, if you look at Megan and how she can use her reach, I think that's the issue that Nunes is going to have. Is Megan is going to be able to use their distance and be able to pick her off. And as you said, that Nunes is going to have no choice but to take her down. And to be honest, I think Nunes. I don't know if her ground game is as good as people make it out to be.
Yeah, I think I I mean Nunez is good everywhere. You know what I mean?
Of
But
course.
I think I honestly think she's underestimating Megan a little bit too, because I mean people don't get to see how much Megan's improving every day. So you
Hmm.
know, I think Megan's gonna shock some people.
Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those fights that is going to really be a wake up call for Nunes. And we watch it a time and time and again in any organization where you have a champion who's dominant, or a champion or a fighter that's on a big winning streak, and then they overlook their opponent or whatever happens, and it's that one, it's that one move that just costs you a fight, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I mean that's another thing with Megan is she has the ability to stop someone with one strike. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Her legs, she has it in her knees, she has elbows, she has that long, stinging, straight punches. So she has that danger factor. And then also on the ground, she has really long limbs. So you
Hmm.
got to watch the neck
Yeah, and that's really difficult to do with someone that's really long, unfortunately.
for sure.
Um, yeah. So, would you consider Nunes to be the goat, or like how do you like if I know that Megan's your obviously she's your teammate, but would you consider Nunes to be kind of like the goat, pretty much?
In women's MMA, for sure,
Hmm.
she is currently for sure. But I mean, Khabib's the goat. He's
Yeah, when we were talking about goats, I meant female, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, in women's MMA, she's done everything so far. So you have to put her
Hmm.
there right now. So until someone knocks her off, she is for sure.
Hmm. Now, I just kind of want to bring the focus back on you here. Lastly, so where do you kind of see yourself in 5 years?
Um, I really think I'm gonna run off some wins in a row here coming up, and I see myself contending in the UFC. I really feel like in the next year or two I'll make it to the UFC, and then I I'll take whatever fight I can get and just prove myself every day in the UFC. So 5 years contending in the UFC, hopefully ranked high or fighting for a belt by then.
You got to set your bar high for sure.
For sure, for sure. There's nothing else you can do.
Hmm. And lastly, so I know that you obviously won't be having another fight for a while now, but after that, how many fights do you want, or you can see getting in 2021?
My goal for the year is to have 4 or 5 fights this year, so
Hmm.
that's still going to be my goal. But man, I'd fight every month, every week if I could, man. And it's just with COVID, there's not as many fights still yet, but
Yeah.
time anytime there's an opportunity, I'm gonna be ready and try to take it. So if if someone, after I get my health stuff taken care of, someone's like, hey, we got one in a week, I'm gonna try to be ready in a week.
Damn, I think you need a conversation with Cowboy Cerrone. The guy fights like all the time.
Yeah, I still want Grant to fight Cowboy, but I don't think Cowboy will take it.
No, I don't think so either. I think Cowboy's kind of on the end
Yep,
of his
yep.
career, and
But yeah,
that's just what happens.
for sure. I mean, it's just once you get to that level, you can't go back of fighting people below that level. So you kind of get stuck in that purgatory between that next level and just slowly fighting all them top guys who are catching you.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, Devin, it's been a pleasure having you on here. I appreciate you taking the time. I was hoping to ask you about your fight. Obviously, that's not gonna be happening. But when you do get a fight, I'd love to have you back on. Again, it's been nothing but a pleasure having you on here, and good luck with everything with your surgery. And we'll talk soon, man.
For sure. Hey, thanks for having me on, and
You're
for sure
welcome.
we'll get to talk more of game plan and what I see happening.
There you go, man.
All
All right,
right.
Devin, you take care.